lab number 267. With this lab, we're starting a new lab series where we will migrate existing application based on MobileFirst Platform 7.1 to MobileFirst Platform 8.0. We will focus on existing hybrid application built with Ionic version 1 and, of course, using the Cordova project structure from MobileFirst Platform 7.1. We will start with opening the terminal and navigating to our dev workspaces folder, and let's create our root folder for new project. Let's call it something like advanced wallet. So just type AW and then navigate to that folder. Next step for us will be to init empty repository, and afterwards we will add here remote repository using command git remote add let's call it origin, and then the URL. You can find URL in description for this lab series. Just like that. So next thing will be to pull the version of the lab, and we will be using the last one. So just type git pull origin and lab 248 is the version that we are interested in. This is also the name of the branch that we are going to pull. It may take a while, so on video I will speed up this process so you will see the end of this. So let's take a look on the structure that we received. We have basically two folders. One is the client side called Hybrid Wallet Cordova, and the second one is the server side called Hybrid Wallet Server, which contains our standard server structure with adapters, apps, components, and everything like that. While the Hybrid Wallet Cordova is almost equal to the standard Cordova project, so there is just some wrappers from MobileFirst Platform. But in general, this project can be modified, so there is no need to create a new one. You can work with existing one and try to modify the existing project. While for a server side, actually you don't need that project anymore. Our adapters will be the separate based projects, and it will be Maven based projects. We don't need any settings like before in authentication config or something like that. That is done in the graphical interface of our server. So basically the server project will be removed. Afterwards we will recreate the adapters. It is recommended to start migration process by reading the migration cookbook. That can be the first and the main resource for you. So for that, let's navigate to tutorials, and it is located in the last part of this page. So migration cookbook, this is what we're interested in. And basically there is a lot of information how to proceed with migration steps. You can of course ask for some assistance in your questions using Stack Overflow or Slack. But IBM also provides you with the migration tool that you can download either from a server side, either install it from the repository. It's called MFP Migrate command line interface, and using that command line interface you can scan the existing project to understand what needs to be migrated, and you can also migrate the client-side project. So it will take the existing one and create a new structure that is suitable for version 8.0. So this is what we will start with. We will install MFP Migrate command line interface. So for that we need to type sudo npm install -g, which means global, MFP Migrate clean. Double Q was uppercase, double Q was lowercase, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the password for sudo user, as you remember, and this will be pretty quick. And afterwards, you should be able to type MFP Migrate help to see the help command with description for possible options. Let me do a bigger window. So basically we have two main commands. First one is scan to perform a scan of existing project, and then a client performs the migration itself. When you type MFP migrate help and then the command, for example scan, you will see the details about the specific command. And as you can see, we need to provide something as the input and something as the output. So the output is just the location where to place the migrated files, or in our case for scan command, where to place the report. We also can specify the type. So if you won't specify it, it will try to scan everything that it will find. If you want to specify the type, the supported options are hybrid, Android, iOS, Windows, and adapter. So let's start with the client side. What we need to do is just to type MFP migrate scan --in, then specify our project, which is the hybrid wallet Cordova project, and we can point it directly to www folder in our case, because there is the code that is located with our web part. This is the hybrid project, as you remember. And as the output, we can specify write this folder with just providing dot. So basically it's scanning the project that we provided, and results are written in the report file. This is the basic web page that you can open with the browser. So just type Google Chrome and that file location, like that, and you will see the differences. So in our existing APIs, where were used, in which line, and what to do next. So you can see the line number, you can also see the exact statement, you can see what you need to do, and basically this is how this kind of works. So you can, by following this scan results, you can select and replace existing APIs that are not supported anymore with version 8, and replace them by new supported ones. And of course, there are links to documentation that you can follow to read more about how to use those new APIs. So when you're doing the migration, the process is actually quite similar. So let's create some kind of folder. Let's call it like migration, for example. And now we can run this process itself. So MFP migrates clients, then the projects that we want to migrate. In our case, it will be hybrid wallet Cordova, and this will be the in, and out will be our folder that we just created. We need to provide a new version, so basically because we're creating the new project based on this one, the new version should be higher than the existing one. So let's type something like 110, for example, and it will automatically install the platform. In our case, it was only Android, so it's starting with Android. It will install the Cordova plugins for MobileFirst Platform that are required by this project. And it will also do the same report that we saw previously, and we'll place it in that folder. This is the name of the report. The things that you need to do manually is you need to install manually third-party plugins. Like, for example, if you are using the different Cordova plugins that are not related to MobileFirst Platform, you will need to install them once again. And you also need to copy the source code manually. So from www folder that we scanned previously, you need to move the code to the new folder. What it means, new folder? Well, inside the migration, you now have this report, and you now have the new project, which is called Hybrid Wallet Cordova, which is the name of the app, and then the name of the package. So if we will take a look on it, you will see that this is the standard Cordova project, so standard client-side project, and inside the www folder, we have just dummy files that needs to be replaced with our initial code from initial app. So what is done within this migration process is actually the plugins installation. So you will be able to see that there we have Cordova plugin, MFP, JSON store, and push, and everything that was dependent on those. And we also have the config file set with the specific params for MobileFirst platform, meaning server connection and all that stuff. And there were migrated all the settings and that config XML related to application name, descriptor, and so on. Basically, the same steps can be performed manually. If you will, for example, go back to our hybrid wallet Cordova project, which is initial project, there are some files that you can just remove, recreate the platforms, and install the plugins once again, and basically you will have the working app. So we will also try that scenario. You already saw how migration process looking using the command line interface. Now let's try to perform that just manually, so you will see the difference. So what we don't need is we don't need to do everything from command line. If you prefer to do it with a graphical interface, either in editor, either manually through the file browser, you can simply go to our workspaces, then to our root folder and to Cordova project. So what we don't need application descriptor XML, that one from old project, and we don't need that structure. We don't need config XML with uppercase. So only config XML with lowercase is needed. Uppercase was a bug that got fixed a long time ago, but before this version was committed to repository. So we don't need MobileFirst folder here. So inside MobileFirst folder, we usually have just the binary of the app that got packaged. So that one is not needed anymore. We can remove it. From a plugins perspective, we don't need all of that because those are outdated versions. So the plugin MFP, JSON store, push, and so on are the previous versions for version 7.1, the same as platform was created using different versions. So if you will type, for example, Cordova platform info, you will see that installed platform version is 3.6.4, which is really outdated. So what we can do is we can type Cordova platform remove, and then specify that we are interested in removing Android platform. So now we don't have any platforms here, and if you will go back inside the plugins folder, you will see that we still have the plugins, so we need to remove them also, and that can be done using Cordova plugin remove, and then providing the name of the plugin. So Cordova plugin MFP, let's go with push first, then JSON store, then basically the core MFP plugin. And you see that when we removed the JSON store, we removed all the dependent plugins, and now the folder is basically empty. So what next? Next is to add the new platform. We will add Android platform, and we are interested in latest version, so just type Cordova platform add Android, and you will see that automatically the Android will be created. We have the platform version 5.1.1, and now in platforms folder we have the Android with the version that we are interested in. And next step for us will be to again install those plugins, but this time from repository. So just type Cordova plugin add and type Cordova plugin MFP. This is the core plugin. It will be fetched from the repository and installed. Afterwards, we will install also JSON store and push. So let's go with push and JSON store. Just like that. So now you will be able to see that in plugins folder we have the same list of plugins that were there before, and all the dependence plugins are also installed. So we can continue with our migration steps. And next step for us will be to actually change the code And we will start with config XML, and for that let's open our code editor. In this lab series we will use Visual Studio Code, and open the folder, root folder of our project, so AW. Let me just do some arrangements of the windows. It will be better afterwards. Just like that. So next step for us will be, as I said, to modify the config XML. Basically what we need to do here is we need to remove old stuff related to MobileFirst Platform. So starting with those preferences, everything can be removed. And that was the first step. We can save this config XML file. The second thing, we don't need this MFP command interface config JSON file. We can simply remove that. And before we are going to modifying our client-side code, we need to do several changes also on the server side. We need to work with adapters, we need to perform application registration on the server, and to do all of that, we firstly need a server. So because we have server installed, for us the only task is to start that one. So let's navigate to our dev server and start our server using the run command. So after server startup, we should be able to navigate to our localhost port 9080, and MFP console is the context that we are interested in. So as you remember, by default we have admin as the username and admin as the password, and we will be able to get inside. So currently no applications, no adapters, nothing. We can register the application manually by clicking new and selecting the type of the application and providing a bundle ID and the version and everything that we can find basically in that config XML. But it's much easier to just go back to terminal and from the client side type mfp dev app register to perform the registration right from the client side. So of course you need to run Cordova Cordova prepare to propagate those changes that we've done in config XML to our platform, to Android native code, and to config there. So just type Cordova prepare, and now when we will refresh the page, we will see that inside our runtime we now have hybrid wallet Cordova application, which is Android app, and which currently has no security, no settings except the default ones. So let's take a look on what happened with our config XML file. So at the bottom of our config file, there were recreated values for MFP with the current version of the client, with the URL of our server that we are going to connect, and the runtime name. So this is what was done automatically. So next step for us will be to work with adapters. So in 7.1, adapters were in server-side projects, and so we used to have two adapters. One was responsible for authentication, and second one was the adapter that was calling a service called getSandbox, where we had demo examples of our backend responses. So it's like mock server on a third-party service. So in this lab series we won't be using that sandbox because some of you may not complete the previous lab series for 7.1, so they don't have this sandbox. So we will use our own service. For that, we will use our own mock server, which will be based on Node.js and running locally, providing the same responses as that backend. So for that, we will need firstly to start a mock server, and afterwards we will need to recreate this wallet adapter. And with authentication adapter, we will deal in our next lab, because that one will be a part of our security section of migration process. And so for now, we need to start with mock server. So what we need to do for that is open one more tab in terminal, navigate to our dev workspaces. Let's create a new folder, something like mock server here, and navigate inside it. Now we can init the empty repository, and we can add remote repository. Let's call it origin, and then provide the URL that you can find in description for this lab series. And we can pull initial version, initial branch of that repository, which is equal to initial version of our mock server. So now you can see that we have our mock server inside. What we will do is that we will remove .git folder, which is our git config, and with all the stuff related to that. Navigate level back to workspaces and move our mock server to our advanced messenger workspace, just like that. So now we have also mock server down there, and we can navigate to it and start the server using Node server.js. So as you can see, it's running on the port 5678, and let's verify that. So we will go to localhost 5678 API, and if you see this line mock APIs are running, it means that it's running and everything is okay. So afterwards we can continue with adapter. So basically we will recreate this wallet adapter, and regarding auth adapter, we will do the different implementation using a security check, but it will be done in our next lab. So for now, let's just open one more tab in terminal, navigate inside our root folder for this project, so AW, and using command line interface MFPF adapter create, we will create our new adapter. Let's call it same way, wallet adapter, and we will have HTTP adapter, so everything like it was. It will be JavaScript implementation. Regarding the group ID, because this is the Maven project, you need to enter it, you can type basically anything. I will go with something like com adapter. So after adapter creation, we will see one more folder created, as I said, as separate project structure, which now is the Maven project. That's why the structure is a bit changed. You have pom.xml that is actually responsible for the way how adapter will be built and how it will be deployed, in case you're doing the local deploy or just deploy using command line interface. Then you have the source folder where you have adapter XML, which is almost the same XML like it was before, and the JavaScript implementation, which is again almost the same like it was before with dummy data. When we will build our adapter together with source folder, we will get a target folder where our binary adapter will be placed. So basically what we will do is we will start with modification of this adapter XML. Because we had previous adapter XML, we just will copy the procedure declaration that we had previously, everything except submit notification, because notification will be done differently, and that one will be the third lab of this lab series. So copy those declarations from the wallet adapter XML and replace current procedures in our adapter XML of newly created adapter. Next thing, what we will need to do is we will replace the security test. We won't be using security tests in 8.0. There is the concept of security checks and scopes, and we will do it in the next lab. For now, we'll just specify that we will disable security, so that can be done using replacement. So we will replace security test equal to specific value with secured false, just like that. This is the first step. Then we need to change the protocol and domain. So in our case, we will be using the localhost mock server that's running, as you remember, on port 5678. Just like that. Save this XML and let's take a look on our implementation. So basically everything that we have in our newly created adapter can be cleared out. So just remove any content there. And we will go to the initial implementation file from 7.1 adapter. So we will need to copy all the functions here, but we don't need to use the push mechanism that was stated there because it was event sourced push notification. So we don't need that part. We can simply remove it and everything else can be just copied to our new implementation file. So we still have those get messages, get count transactions, set limit and everything like it was in previous lab. So there is no changes in that. So let's just save this file. We can close the second one. We don't need to save any changes there. And navigate to our adapter folder and perform adapter build first. And afterwards, of course, deployment to our local server. So the first time is doing the build, it may take a while. Afterwards, the second, third, and so on will go much faster, of course. So as I said, together with the source folder, after a build completion, you will have a target folder where you will have this .adapter file that you can either manually take and deploy on your server using graphical interface or REST API or whatever method you will be using. Or you can just type here MFP adapter deploy to perform a deployment to the server definition that is here. And for now, we have only localhost on this machine. So now after page refresh, we should be able to see adapter inside. And yes, we have our wallet adapter with the no security on the resources tab, and using the new feature from version 8, I mean built-in Swagger, we can actually test those adapters. So for example, let's check get limit. Just click try it out and you will see if the mock server is working and you're able to get a response. And yes, we got the response, which is pretty awesome. The same can be done with get cars and other stuff. So basically our adapter working as expected and we are able to call it also from a client side. And of course, next step for us will be to modify the client side. So regarding the client side, basically we need to do several things. First, we will need to verify that the init is happening as it should. So if you remember previously inside index.html, we were adding the reference to index.js file in which we were getting the control, meaning we were catching WL command init that was actually called after framework initialization. So the same as it was in 7.1, the same as it is in 8.0, you can do a manual init if you want. And just after API loaded and before the init, you can cache the event that is distributed from the plugin. So if you will take a look on the plugin, Cordova plugin MFP, there is the file called bootstrap.js. And there is the event that gets distributed called MFP.js loaded. So right after its dispatch, it means that a framework is there, but there is no init still. So WL client init happening after this dispatch of this event. So if you don't want it happening automatically, you can cache this event, for example, to know when actually the MFP is ready, and then manually perform the init using your init options, for example. So for us, we don't want to cache that manually. We can continue with automatic approach, so we can still have this WL command init. We don't need to specify any messages or init options. We will go with default approach. So the only thing is that we don't have any more WL Client Connect. So that one got deprecated. You can just use WL resource request, and during the resource request, of course, you will perform the connection also. Or if you really want to do something like analog of WL Client Connect, you can use authorization manager and obtain access token, which partially is analog of what is done within the WL Client Connect. But again, we don't really need that. So what we will do here is we will specify something like this. We will have WL common init code, and when it's called, we will say that WL common init called, something like that, and we will dispatch the custom event, but instead of server connected, let's call it something like MFP init, for example, like that. And then we need to catch that event same way as it was before. So right in our controller, the first one that gets loaded is cars controller based on our application config, as you remember. So we have cars as the first page that will be loaded. Somewhere here there is the provider route. So what we will do here is instead of server connected, we will type MFP init that will get catched, and afterwards we will call init complete and so on. So within the init complete, we were doing the creation of challenge handler, and then we were trying to cache that challenge and work with it. So we will do all of that, but of course in next lab, and now we will bypass the security. So we will comment everything connected with the security here right before the load cards, and we will work on that in our next lab. So in init complete, for now there will be just init completed console log, and afterwards there will be a call of load cards. Because there is no security, we will be able to load cards and actually work with them. The next step is actually to take a look on our API report, because there is each and every place that should be changed as stated here. So you can see that we have line number 263 with the logout function that is not there anymore. So we have authorization manager with logout function there, but for now, because security is not something that we are doing right now, we can just simply comment that line. So the next step for us will be to work on push, because push will be done differently in third lab of this lab series. And for now, again, we just need to comment that out. So for push, the start is somewhere here on the line number 47, and the finish is right here, and the push is not supported. And what we need to do is just to comment that out. So basically we commented everything that was needed, that was stated here, related to security, to client connect, to push, and to logout. So now we can save this controller.js file and finally run our application. So that can be done in our first terminal tab where we had our hybrid project. So just type MFP app preview, which is the live reload server. So you will need to select either browser, either mobile browser simulator, just like it was before. So we'll go with the simple browser preview, and you will see the application loading down there. We can go to inspection tab, and we will be able to see the results of that load. So you see that it's working. The lock uploader errors can be ignored for now. It will be working on real device. So we have our cards, we have our messages down there, which are also loaded. We can go with changing limits. As you can see, everything is working. We are changing the limits successfully. We got the information about cards with the cards data, of course, and we are able to switch the cards. And of course, this application will look much better if we will launch it using the specific device, for example, how it will be looking on Nexus 6P. Yep, somehow like that. So basically, that was it. That's all for our first lab. And in our second lab, we will continue moving our app to version 8.0, and we will focus on security. Thank you.